Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to people in other time zones. I'm Steve Farrell, the Worldwide Executive Director for Humanities Team, and welcome to the Living in Oneness Summit. It's great to be with you today. It's a gorgeous day here in Boulder, Colorado. I hope it's pretty in your part of the world. I'm going to be interviewing a very special guest today, Lance Secretan. We're going to talk about Lance's latest book, A Love Story, an intensely personal memoir. The Secretan Center, ranked #1 in the world, is an international leadership consulting firm by Leadership Excellence, and Lance's participation in the Humanities Team Conscious Business curriculum. He's an important member of the faculty. We'll be talking about this extraordinary program that just launched for the first time on May 2nd. I know you're going to enjoy today's program. I'll be introducing Lance shortly. We're all very excited about these topics that we're going to get to. This hour is going to go fast. We have about 20,000, a little over, registered for today's call. Some cannot listen in live, so we send out a recorded link so these people can listen in later. Thank you so much, everyone, for prioritizing time to be here for this important conversation. This call is interactive with each of you, our listeners, so we want to invite you to put your questions in the question window on Instant Teleseminar. I promise we'll get to at least a few of your questions during the hour. A little about Humanities Team as we get started. In Humanities Team, we see there is only one presence, the divine, and see we are all offspring and expressions of the divine. This means God's love, light, grace, and peace are ours because there is no separation and we share the same essence. We don't share this as something academic or intellectual. We believe everyone and everything is a beautiful and sacred face of the divine. Since our founding in 2003, we've done our best to live as one with the divine, each other, and our earth home. We don't need to be perfect. It doesn't have to feel heavy. We must only do our best. When we talk about oneness with the divine, of course, this is true for all of life, not just humanity. This has repercussions for how we see ourselves, others, and the earth that is our home. This means everyone and everything is sacred and should be treated as such. It also means we're responsible for the world around us because, in truth, it's part of our authentic self, encompassing the whole of the earth. Perhaps there's nothing more important than this, coming to see ourselves as a cell in the body of the divine, the earth, and stepping into a role where we're caring for the earth and the world that we live in. This is important and urgent work. We are advocating personal development that crosses over into all of our roles, including that of partner, parent, and community citizen, but also institutional change, so we live as one collectively and create a fulfilling, compassionate, and sustainable world. If you resonate with our work, we invite you to go to the humanitiesteam.org website and reach out to us about projects you'd like to become involved in. That's humanitiesteam.org. Okay, please get comfortable as we begin our program. I'm now going to introduce our special guest. Dr. Lance Secretan is one of the most insightful and provocative leadership teachers of our time. He is the former CEO of a Fortune 100 company, university professor, award-winning columnist, poet, and author of 15 books about inspiration and leadership, and a recent memoir, A Love Story. He coaches and advises leaders globally. He is ranked 26th most influential executive coach globally and guides leadership teams who wish to transform their culture into the most inspirational in their industries. Individuals, entire organizations, cities, and states have experienced remarkable transformations through his unique mentoring, coaching, wisdom, and approach. He has helped 6 companies to be named to Fortune's Best Companies to Work For in America list, and 8 others are also his clients. And 30 Secretan Center clients are on Fortune's Most Admired Companies list. He is ranked 13th in the world by leadership gurus, and Speakers in America ranks him among the top 5 leadership speakers. His firm, the Secretan Center, is ranked #1 in the world as an international leadership consulting firm by Leadership Excellence. Some of his books include 1, Spirit at Work, and Living the Moment. Welcome to the Living in Oneness Summit, Lance. It's great to have you with us here today.
It's great to be here, Steve. Thank you.
Okay, and Lance is such a wonderful friend of ours. He's been involved in Global Oneness Day and the Living in Oneness Summit, and now the Conscious Business curriculum. And as I mentioned in his introduction, gosh, there's so many things you've done, Lance. So I'm really looking forward to this hour. Let's just jump right in here. If it makes sense, let's just start with this your most recent book, which is so deeply personal. This book called A Love Story, an intensely personal memoir. And Lance, can you just tell us a little about this book and I'm sure that there are a lot of deeply personal things in this book. So, yeah, I would love to just kind of step through that with you.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Well, I guess I'll start by saying I was married to a wonderful woman, a true spirit, Tricia, for 30 years, and it was the most amazing relationship of my life. And I've never known love like this. I think that we were a true model of oneness because we were always seen as a unit. It wasn't just Lance is coming or Trish is coming and bringing her husband. It was Lance and Trish, always, like Tom and Jerry or Mutt and Jeff. So we were known that way. We knew we had something remarkable. Trish was my muse. She was my lover. She was everything. And she passed away 2 years ago. And over those years, I had written a lot of poetry for her privately, and I don't publish or hadn't published poetry. But I wondered whether I could take those poems and perhaps dust them off and then tell the narrative of the journey that Trish and I embarked on and share some of the stories and so on. So I wrote this book. It's not a long book. It's called A Love Story, and it is about our love story. And it talks about how we met and what we learned along the way, describes to our dog that was a very important part of our life and what we learned from her. And it's become really a passion of mine, this book, and it's done really well. It's got fantastic reviews, so I've been very, very happy with it. Now, when I write a book, typically, all the other books I've written are books about leadership, so I usually have a plan. How will this book play as a keynote? How will it work as a curriculum or as a text or in a workshop or for training other coaches and so on? And so as I work through the book, I pull together pieces of it in a way that is going to be more than just a book. It's going to be a whole adventure of which the book is just a part. And along the way, halfway perhaps through the book, I'll take it out on the road and test some ideas with audiences and then either change things or add things or whatever. So it becomes a work in progress. This book, A Love Story, none of that happened. So it was a completely off the top of my head, from my heart version of writing. I just poured myself and cried all the time as I was writing it. And so I had no motive in the sense of how does this inform us in terms of leadership, for example. But after I'd written it, I had a realization which for me was sort of stunning, because I've done a lot of work in leadership. I've taught leadership. I've taught at a number of universities. I work with leaders every day. My whole subject is leadership. I've written 15 books about it, so I'm in and out of the subject all day long. But I realized that actually one of the things we're doing is making a mistake, I think, in the whole idea of leadership. The way we teach it like engineering. We teach it as a mechanical subject. So we teach, for instance, leadership competencies, and we teach things like how to lead millennials and how to lead women and so on. But if you were to ever do those things at home, you'd be run out of town. So it's really strange that we have this way of thinking at the workplace, but we don't use the same kind of criteria at home. So I wondered, what makes a perfect relationship? What makes a perfect marriage? What makes a perfect partnership? And if you list those characteristics, and everybody has their own list, of course, and I have one in the book, but it might include things like compassion and listening and love, passion, trust, respect. There are lots of words we could add. But what would happen if we took all those words and used them to run organizations? Would we create a love story? And so the work that I'm developing now, and which will be part of the curriculum that I will be working with in this program, is really testing that idea, pushing that, and trying to set aside so much of the claptrap that we've been working with for so long, because the reality is leadership is broken and it's not working anywhere. So doing more of the same thing is probably not helpful. We need to do something entirely new. So this book, in a way, and quite accidentally informs us of an entirely new way of thinking about leadership.
Wow. Is that stunning or what? And it just feels to me like, of course, there's never any coincidence in anything. And just as challenging as this is, losing somebody that's just so amazing, Tricia, your partner and lover, who went beyond just like as you share, what often is seen in a marriage to something that really was a twin flame type opportunity that was created in this lifetime for the two of you. But now to come out of it, this understanding that you're sharing, which, wow, it does this ties so beautifully to conscious business as you share this approach that's taught in business schools that's focused so much on engineering and profit and just that is so mechanical as you describe it, is failing. I think most people can see that. I don't think most people see what's emerging as the new opportunity, which is conscious business, and how beautiful that all of the energy of that relationship and of Tricia now flows into this whole new concept of what business can be. Amazing. So I would think people could be inspired by this book on many levels. One, just in terms of at a personal relationship level of meeting and treating the person that is your partner as the just exceptional person that they are, and making that relationship so special as you and Tricia did. But then also segueing into these other parts of our life and seeing how love and integrity and inspiration, all of these things can infuse the workplace and all of these other parts of our life.
Yeah, and it's stunning in another way. It's stunning that we have complicated all this so much in the workplace. If you look at things like leadership development, we're spending $270 billion a year on leadership development. We have 250,000 books on Amazon.com, and 50,000 new ones are being produced every year. We are just churning out pretty well the same homogeneous material over and over and over again. And we're not actually succeeding with it. That's the irony. It's just an incredible waste and extraordinarily difficult to figure out, because most of these, a professor, and I've done the professor thing, will try to say, how do I create a model and a theory that's different from all the other billions of theories that are out there so that I don't look like I'm plagiarizing or there's nothing, that isn't unique about me and so on. So we get all these new iterations, which are not really new, but they sort of have a spin on the old in a new way. And yet all of this is just defeating us. And the stunning part of this is that, like a lot of things, the answer is incredibly simple. Not easy, that's not the same thing, but simple.
Yes, it is. It is, absolutely. This is so amazing because we created a core values within Humanities team that we live. It creates our culture of oneness. Because, of course, our value proposition in Humanities team is each of us living it, each of us in our own way. Of course, there's diversity and oneness. But also, even in the diversity, there are really important things, such as what we're talking about here now, and of really feeling into the connection, of deeply listening to each other and to the divine, going within. There are many things that help to create that culture where we can live it together and not just bring our to-do list to each other as often happens in the workplace.
Yeah, it's funny you say to-do list, because I actually this morning was thinking about this and thought that's what we do. You might call it to-do list management. That's so we put on the to-do list, must have a mission statement. Check, done that. Must have a leadership training program. Check, done that. We think we're done when we complete this task. Rumi has a wonderful quote. He said, "Love is the bridge between you and everything." Now, if we just took that phrase alone and said, how do you make that into a brand, for instance. If love is the bridge between you and everything, then that must be true of a brand. It must be true of a corporation. It must be true of me and my boss. It must be true of my colleagues. It must be true everywhere. So in other words, what else do I need to know here?
Boy, isn't that the truth? Gosh, this feels like, Stephen Covey just redefined so many things with his work. And Lance, this feels to me like something on the same level of just redefining business and life just through these things that have come to you in recent years. That is this book, Love Story.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Well, how incredibly exciting. And well, let's go ahead and just talk a little bit more here about Oneness and the Secretan Center and Conscious Business Initiative. And wow, has this set the table or what for that discussion? The Secretan Center, I mentioned that you're working with large Fortune 100 companies. You're unusual in this Oneness community in that you found a way to talk to business leaders from where they sit and to just journey in oneness with them. Can you just talk a little bit about that and then bring in as much as you want about some of these big clients that you work with?
Yeah, it's interesting. If you ask people what is it they want, they will tell you that they want inspiration and harmony and respect and success, of course, although we might think of that as an external measure, and joy might be a better word, which is more of an internal measure. But they don't know how to get there, and especially we don't know how to get there. If you think about our history, we start, don't we, in our sort of grade school levels where you have to go through a certain sequence of events and climb a bunch of hurdles and get through them successfully, and then you move on to the next ones. This is a mental model that we absorb, and we learn quickly because we're creatures of habit and we don't like being punished, i.e. failing. So we learn that system, and then we go through university and we learn the system over and over again, and then we get into business, and yes, of course, we learn the system there too. So if you were to try and do that in any other kind of relationship other than business, you'd fail. You couldn't do that in your marriage. You couldn't do that with a friendship. And so what people are yearning for is something much, much deeper, but they have no clue how to get there because they have no experience. All they've known is climbing these hurdles and hitting these goals and targets and so on, and being successful as judged by someone else. In other words, I'm the teacher, and I'll tell you whether or not you pass the exam. Or I'm the customer, and I'll tell you or not whether the product meets my needs. Or I'm your boss, and I'm going to give you a performance review and tell you whether or not I approve of who you are. Something, by the way, you'd be fired from if you did that at home. So the trick for us is to translate the language of oneness and love and the spiritual underpinnings of what being a human is all about, and decoding that for business consumption. Because if you speak to someone who's got a spreadsheet in front of them and talk to them about loving someone, they'll freak out. And they won't freak out just for themselves. More it'll be about they're worried about how this will play elsewhere. Will they be seen to be too woo-woo or flaky or something if they start promoting those ideas, because that's outside the box. It's not within the parameters of what you're supposed to do as an MBA-trained leader. So we decode, and what happens, of course, is astonishing results. And the benefit of that always is that speaks louder than anything else. So people can say, yeah, actually it does sound a bit like California, but look at the results we've been able to achieve. And that shuts down that argument. The other thing I think we do a lot, and we're very careful about doing this, is we translate everything into logic. I'll give you an example. We typically work with very good organizations. We don't often work with broken or disastrous organizations. So the organizations we work with are already smart and good and clever and doing things really well. They want to do it better. So I typically will say to them, look how well you're doing when people don't think about oneness or love or inspiration. What would happen if we did think about those and just layered them right on top of everything that you're doing now that's fantastic? How could it be any worse? That's just a very pragmatic argument. Let's try it over here and see if it works. If it does, then let's go bigger and do it over here. And typically that's how we work, and it's quite remarkable what happens. And it doesn't take long. That's the other myth. You know, we're very inexpensive relative to some of the big consulting firms because we can get things done in 90 days, not 3 years. And we won't have a team of 10 people, you know, combing over the organization, doing research and so on. We'll simply be talking to people one-on-one and saying, try this approach in your communication, see how that works. One of the other things that we'll talk about in our course is looking at some of the old ideas like mission, vision, and values and rethinking those altogether because they're excruciatingly boring, very uninspiring, and pretty well all the same across all organizations. But what is really inspiring is a dream. And we'll talk about how to create a dream, why a dream is powerful, and so on. And I'll give you talked about some of my clients, Steve. One of my clients is Humana, which is one of the largest health insurance companies in America. We created a dream for them. And when we created the dream, they were a $15 billion business. 8 years later, they were a $50 billion business, so nearly 400% increase on that base, which is pretty amazing. Not only that, but they said, we're so stunned with what's happened here. We're based in Louisville, Kentucky. We'd like you to create a dream for the city of Louisville. We'll pay for it. Will you do that? And so we created a dream for Louisville, which is not ranked as one of the best reputation towns in America. But shortly after that, they became ranked as the happiest city in America, and they have really moved themselves onto the map. They have done some extraordinary things there with a very, very clever and inspiring mayor, Greg Fisher, and I've been along his side for a long time. And the city of Louisville is a place that people are admiring more and more every day. I'll give you one other example. Austin, Texas has a dream. That dream is to be the music capital, live music capital of the world. Today they are exactly that. 2 million people come to the South by Southwest Festival because they had a dream. That's an inspiring town. Who would have ever thought a city like Austin, Texas would have that sort of excitement, passion, love, energy, and the crucible of so many brilliant musical acts that get their birth there. So those are some of the examples of some of the things that we've been doing over the years. Starbucks is another company that has a dream. There are many of them.
Yeah, that is awesome. During the webinar, the Conscious Business webinar that we did together, I think I briefly shared my own story relating to this, which was in the 90s when I was in Silicon Valley. At the time I was running a data communications company, this whole area of internetworking for where companies are designing these backbones of bridges, routers, switches that support their data communications across their campuses. And the 90s was seeing terrific growth there. We were just growing like crazy. And I was reading this material on oneness, Neil Donald Walsh's material, but also Deepak Chopra's, Marianne Williamson's A Course in Miracles, and material from scientists and philosophers relating to oneness. And I just decided that, gosh, this really is ultimate reality. This is truth. And of course, there's no way to partition truth. You can't live it in one part of your life and not in another and be in integrity. So one of the things that came to me at this time when I was the CEO of a fast-growing company is that I needed to throw out my day planner because just and not that everybody needs to do this, by the way. This just was my thing. What came to me was that this way of managing with to-do lists needed to go because I wasn't being in integrity and oneness. And so I threw out my day planner and just started working with all of the team and our customers and all of our vendor partners more one-on-one in a heart basis, still doing presentations, doing all the things that I had, but not from to-do lists, not from just kind of we got to do this and this and this, but more from the place of how can we do this together, and the do together was the real love and compassion and truth and being in integrity and not spinning stories and that. And I was incredibly afraid at this time because I thought I was going to throw away my investment. This particular company, my partner and I started. We didn't have any capital in it at all. We had modest salaries, and our whole future really was in this company. And once again, I thought I might crash it by going to this process. And just the opposite happened. Even though we were getting incredible growth, we accelerated that growth dramatically when we came into this new process of open book management, where we were sharing our financials and where we were working together more on a heart basis. And I could see then the magic that Oneness can bring to business, and it sounds like it's similar to much of what we're talking about here now, Lance. And that I think the thing that you did that's remarkable and can be valuable to us as we're really driving this conscious business initiative is to frame this, decode it, as you say, and speak to people in language, business people in language that they can hear and understand. So that's the key. It's the same thing, but use languaging that people can embrace from business.
Well, one of the other things that I think I've discovered, and we'll be talking about this a lot during the course, is that it isn't leadership we're actually after. I think that's a red herring. We've been chasing that for a long time. We've been trying to teach leadership forever. And frankly, even in my own case, with 15 books, I hope you never read 10 of them, because they're really redundant and obsolete, those 10 books, especially the ones I wrote as teaching manuals when I was teaching in university. And I think that possibly 5 of them, have survived and are readable and actually might inform some people, probably 2 or 3 of them more than the others. And that's about it. Now, the discovery I made was this. We don't want to be led. We want to be inspired. If you look around the world today, the great lack for all of us is that we're not inspired. We're not inspired by Washington. We're not inspired by corporate America. We're not inspired by healthcare or education or the Roman Catholic Church or families or many of our relationships. We're not inspired by so many of the icons that we should cherish, such as specific companies and organizations, or even athletes and Hollywood stars and so forth. So we're disappointed, and we're not inspired. Now, if you think about it, inspiration is at the heart of oneness. When I'm inspired, I'm one with what I love. And when I'm uninspired, I'm separated from what or whom I love. And that essentially explains all of our adventures in life.
Yes, it does. It absolutely does. And gosh, what comes to mind here? Well, first of all, so true. You share, mission, vision, values. Just it has become such a rote thing of, okay, team, let's define these things. And then the old style management, which rolls downhill, which is, that somebody's going to lead, which means that they're telling people what to do, which is such a turnoff, as opposed to inspiring, where you create this common dream or vision. In our case, in Humanities Team, it's that we are all one. Let's live that way. And really, this whole interior, this inner journey thing of finding that, creating that time each day to commune with the divine, really feeling into that and have that just be a part of our day, our communication, everything that we do, and then doing that together. That's what inspires the heck out of us in Humanities Team. And as we have this dream for the earth, it's that we can all live that way together collectively, that humanity can feel its oneness with the divine, each other, and all of life, and create this whole new civilization. So, yeah, I think, and obviously, one of the wonderful things here is in your case, you're not a professor. You are a professor, but a lot more than that. Your ideas aren't just academic. You are getting this growth and seen as a leadership consulting firm that is top-notch because you're bringing these ideas into practice in large businesses like Humana and others.
Well, I also had an experience long ago where I helped create a company that grew from 0 to 72,000 employees. And the second book actually that I wrote was really a story about my experience of doing that, which again was a bit like your experience. I looked at the traditional ways. I was really young when I was running this company, so I really didn't know anything. The only thing I actually knew for sure was how not to run a company, because I'd had a boss who was the boss from hell. And I vowed, the only thing I could possibly do in running this new company that I was going to be in charge of was to not do the things that had really upset me and uninspired me. And so I essentially did the opposite, and that, interestingly, became a code for me. So some of my work has emanated from what isn't working, what do people not like, let's do the opposite of that. And it's funny, if you look historically, that's the birth of globe-changing ideas. For example, the Constitution. I will not be taxed without representation is a statement of the reverse. We were being taxed without representation. So the Constitution becomes a statement that's the opposite. The Magna Carta, Charter 77, Charter 88, numerous global documents like that were actually statements of the opposite. And therefore, in our business setting, leadership, I think, can flow from a place that starts exactly there. If we take an analysis of an organization and say, what's not working? Well, separateness is not working. That's for sure. And we have become experts at that. We can segment and separate so many slicing and dicing ways that we know, what female millennials born in Minnesota who've been to grade school can actually want to eat on a Thursday afternoon. I mean, this is how we know how to separate. But in reality, that isn't the way life works. It's the way the engineer mind thinks. But that separateness is not the way things actually happen. So what I've learned from all this is to say, what is not working? Let's do the opposite of that. That will be a powerful way to go forward because it'll inspire people. And one of the segments in our curriculum will cover that.
Yes, and we're talking about the conscious business curriculum. He is Lance Secretan, is a valued member of the faculty of this Humanities Team Conscious Business Curriculum. It started on May 2nd. It goes through July, and then there'll be another program in September. It'll launch in mid-September. We're planning 3 programs next year, and it's such an important program because it is at the heart of this whole conscious business initiative that we created in Humanities Team and with partners with the Club of Budapest, the Goy Peace Foundation, and the Fowler Center for Business out of Case Western Reserve University. And its whole focus is to move business from this focus almost exclusively on profit to a focus that where profit continues to be a key variable, of course, but where businesses become generators of good things, of nurturing, of service in their communities, where there's transparency, where we're restoring the earth, and other things. I'll share where you can go to read the Conscious Business Declaration before the call is over, but we feel it's so important now that we focus on this institution of business because our jobs are there, our income's there, our paycheck is there. And we all know of many businesses that are doing a wonderful job and the smaller ones that are emerging that are conscious, but there also are whole industries, energy, parts of the financial industry, parts of agriculture and pesticide and farming and fishing where it's not conscious and they're not generators of the kinds of things that we believe we want to see on the planet. So the Conscious Business Declaration, the Conscious Business Initiative, this curriculum that Lance is on the faculty of focuses on transforming business into conscious business. And what we believe is in the next decade that we'll actually hospice this model where business is focused almost exclusively on profit. So it's exciting and inspiring, and you might want to check it out. If you go to the humanitiesteam.org website, you can click on Conscious Business to read more about it. There are a bunch of comments that people have shared. They love here. Answers can be simple, but not always easy to execute. Inspiration is at the heart of oneness. When I'm inspired, I'm one with what I love. These are some of the things that Lance Secretan's been sharing. If you're on the phone, I think it might be star 2 to put your hand up. And if you're on the Instant Teleseminar, you can just put questions and comments in the question window. And gosh, we only have 25 minutes left, but there's still time to bring in a few more things if you'd like to share with us. So, Lance, can you talk a little about the particular program that you're teaching in July here as part of the Conscious Business curriculum? I know it touches on a lot of the things you've been talking about.
Yes, there's sort of two sections, really. One is about why we need to move from leadership to inspiration, and then along the way pause and just dissect leadership, inspiration and motivation, because there's a big difference between the two, and we've become experts at motivation, but we don't know much about inspiration. And then moving on, we'll talk about my book, The Spark, the Flame, and the Torch. And the overall theory of this is that we need to inspire the world, of course, but it isn't just that easy. So where do we start? And we start with the spark. The spark is becoming inspired. We first must fill up our own tanks, because we can't inspire other people from an empty place. We have to be full ourselves. And there's lots of theories that say that's not true, but I don't buy them. So I think you've got to fill up your own tank and come from a full place so that you're fully inspired and therefore able to share that and inspire other people. Now, of course, we have off days and so on, but generally speaking, we should be inspired, and I will talk about how we actually become inspired. The next step is the flame. The flame is how we inspire others. This is where I'll talk about what doesn't work and how we converted that into what does work. And there's a model for that, which is widely used in organizations all over the world. And then lastly, we'll talk about the torch, which is how to inspire the world. And we do that basically through two techniques. One, performance management. We manage the performance of other people, and therefore we change the world. And the other one is through coaching. And we coach others, whether it's our kids or our friends or our colleagues or people that work for us. But we coach a lot of people in our lives, whether we know it or not. And how do we do that? And how do we do it in a way that changes the world? So that will be one of the sessions. The other one will go to the next place, which is about where is love in all of this? And what do we learn from the whole subject of building an inspiring relationship with another person? And what are the clues that come from that tell us what we should be doing in building a relationship within an organization, with a team, or any other place in our lives? And as you said earlier, Steve, you can't partition this. So really we're talking about a recipe, not just about business. For instance, we talk about the Conscious Business program here. But the way I'm approaching this is we're talking about conscious life, of which business is just a part. And because you can't separate it, and you can't partition it, as you say, we don't tell people, well, you're going to be a loving person from 5 p.m. until 9 a.m., and then all of a sudden you're going to lie and steal and cheat. I mean, that's not the way the world works. So we're going to be talking about this as a whole, which will mean that people who do change and who do grow as a result of this program will be different human beings in every aspect of their life. So one of the things that, I've often some of my clients joke with me when I meet their spouses. They say, you should have told me, because you sent home a different man than the man I married. And I'm glad that happens, because I think the person we sent home as a result was a more inspiring, loving person who built oneness into their relationships, and as a result became more inspired, and then came back to work and therefore was more inspiring there. It's all one.
Yes, it is. That's wonderful. Love that. Well, most partners I know would jump at the chance to see their partner come back more loving, patient, and inspiring. So that's awesome. I've got a couple questions I'm going to get to here, but also want to mention, Lance, we are working, on TED Talks to just get out the whole the Conscious Business Initiative, get it up above even just this oneness community, so that business leaders can see it and understand it. And we'll definitely circle back around to you, because I think you've got some great ideas that could come into those TED Talks. Here's some questions that have surfaced here. Could Lance tell us what his earlier companies were? Just curious, what inspired him to be an entrepreneur? Does he feel all people are entrepreneurs at the core? Is one of the questions, Lance.
Well, the company we built was called Manpower. It's the largest employer in the world today, and employing about 6 million people everywhere in every country. So wherever people are on this phone call, I'm sure there's a Manpower office somewhere in your community. And that was in the very, very early days of that company, and now it's a giant, of course, and built on probably 3 or 4 of us that built different pieces of the organization into giant components. But it was a very, very instructive, magical time. It's kind of like the dot-com era, only it was before the dot-com era. But it's one of those things where you hitch your wagon to something that's a rocket, and if you're doing it right and it works, it's an amazing experience. So that was my early career. Is everybody an entrepreneur? No, I don't think so, probably. I don't think everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. I'm sure everybody is capable of being an entrepreneur, but there are lots of people who don't wish to do that. And indeed, one of the things I think is very important in the way I feel about things anyway is that we need to play to our strengths. And, for instance, I'm working with an artist right now who's a very accomplished artist, but not an entrepreneur. So the difficulty, of course, is they make beautiful art, but it's not visible. People don't get to see it because she's not a very good marketer. And as a result of that, this brilliant art doesn't get into the world. Well, what she needs to do, of course, is to add that skill to her skill, not try and learn something that she doesn't want to do or can't do, and weld that onto her so that she can do what she does really well, but this other person can do what they do well, and therefore as a team they get to be fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, and an entrepreneurial skill is, there are a few that are called to it, and of course there's a lot involved in that. But thankfully, this is the diversity and oneness thing, is just like your artist friend. Boy, don't they light up the world with their own imagination and creativity and their art. Mm-hmm. So this is a case where we're all a paint of a different color.
Right.
And where we mix, we make this beautiful world that's here now. Here's another question that came in, Lance, that wants to know what the top 3 books that you would now recommend. You mentioned earlier there were some earlier books you wrote that you wouldn't recommend, but what if you were going to put together a list of 3 for this conscious community, right, that we're in, what would that book list be?
Well, let's set aside the one I've just written. I hope everybody's going to rush out and buy that anyway, so I won't put that on my list. But I think Living the Moment is one book. That's a fable. It's a story about Native Americans, and it's a story of 2 brothers who go on a vision quest and discover the meaning of life. Then there's a book called One, The Art and Practice of Conscious Leadership, and that's a book about oneness. It essentially describes the fact that we live within an illusion in modern organizations, that we think things are separate when in reality they're not, and goes into some depth about how to live in the corporate world as one. And then most recently, The Spark, the Flame, and the Torch, that's the book before A Love Story, which is the one I described earlier. And those 3 books, I think, are probably the ones that I would recommend people read of my work.
That's awesome. And, of course, we were talking earlier about A Love Story, which is this deeply personal book that Lance wrote with no motive, as he mentioned, other than just to share what was true on his heart, and that now is infusing all of your thought processes. You're revisiting what business is today and what it can be. So, wow, what a just amazing story. I'm so glad that we started by talking about that book.
I think it also is a book that is a message of hope. Roughly, there's some interesting statistics. 55% of marriages don't succeed. Of the remaining 45% that are surviving, three-quarters of those are marriages of convenience for money reasons, for kids, for accommodation and so on, which basically means 11% of marriages are succeeding. Now, if we think we know what we're doing here, we're crazy, because that is simply a failure rate. And this book is really about how could that look differently, and what might we do in partnership with another person. And the other thing is that 60% of my clients are incredibly successful but have terrible relationships. So it's amazing to me that when we look at this as separateness, that we don't understand that if we can repair your relationship with your son or with your spouse and make it inspiring, you'll become a better leader. It's one.
I'll say, the full name of that book is A Love Story, an Intensely Personal Memoir by Lance Secretan, and you can find that at, of course, any bookstore or Amazon. Sounds like a must-read, A Love Story, an Intensely Personal Memoir. So just for our own personal reasons and as we look at institutions like business, wow, a lot of takeaway there. So that's exciting. And let me mention, again, Lance Secretan is on the faculty of the Humanities Team Conscious Business curriculum. His course, one of his courses, is called A Grand Theory of Corporate Vitality, that gets into this whole discussion of inspiration. I love one of the quotes you shared earlier, Lance, that said, you said we don't want to lead, we want to be inspired, and what's not working, let's do the opposite of that.
Right.
It's as simple as that, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Lance, we've only got here about another 8 minutes because I want to share some of the coming programs before the hour is over. So I want to just come back to you with just give you the opportunity to share any calls to action that you have for our listener community. How can people get involved and help? How can they become more conscious? How can they, live the inspired life that you see?
Well, I think that it's very important. What you're doing is very important. It's very hard, I think, for us to change because it's very endemic in our society, the way we think about so much. For instance, you referred earlier to profit, a profit-driven society and the business climate where profit is everything and so on. And I think we have to be careful not to get into a place where profit is a bad thing, because we are in a capitalist system, and profit is the measure of a capitalist system. It's one of the measures anyway. And therefore, we have to be, I think, guarded about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We need profit. It's the oil that makes the whole thing work. If we want to change the system, we can do that, but that's a much bigger job. But I think what we're really looking for is conscious capitalism, capitalism that is fair and generous, looks after the environment, and is inspiring. I want to work for a company that makes my heart sing. And it will do that if it operates from integrity, if it's good to the environment, if it looks after people, if it tells the truth, and so on. A number of criteria like that, which actually all, in the end, boils down to oneness. So if you look at it in our lives, when are we most inspired? It's because and when we are doing things or with people that we love. If music inspires us, then we become one with music. And if we are one with music, it inspires us. Now, as soon as that's not the case, so if we, for instance, are inspired by, let's say, Starbucks or with the Internet or whatever, we're one with that. But as soon as that is not the case anymore and we don't like those companies or they're disappointing us or letting us down, then we're no longer inspired. So in other words, we're separate. And this separateness is very important when you look at every organization, including business, but also in marriage. For example, one of the things I talk about in A Love Story is that one of the criteria of a beautiful relationship is the paradox of separateness and uniqueness and oneness, all joined together. So, in other words, we need to recognize that we are separate people and feed the separateness in the sense of our unique skills, gifts, talents, and so on, and help each other to grow as separate, unique beings, but at the same time as one, as a team, as seamless between the two of us, or more of us if we're a bigger team. So that's a paradox, and it's I think, something that we have to get our heads around. It's quite difficult to do that, because I think on the one hand we say separateness isn't working, and on the other hand we say, well, yes, it is, as long as you have oneness as well. Well, that's kind of a strange way to look at it, but sadly I think that is the way we need to look at it.
Yeah, I think this is why your model is so awesome, inspire, flame, and torch, because as you mentioned, that first step is inspire. You shared, if we don't fill up our own tank, we don't really have anything to offer here of value. So
right.
That's that inner journey. That's that going within, communing with the divine. Really, inspiration is where it starts, and then comes the flame, and then comes the torch, which is right on. Boy, that's such a powerful model. Also, just, yes, this area of profit, of course, it's crucial. My gosh, you run a consulting company today and ran Manpower back in the day. And with these two companies that I was leading in Silicon Valley, holy cow, you go out of business without profit. So it is a matter of just redefining this whole thing. I'll share how these principles are layered, the first two that are brief in the Conscious Business Declaration, because it kind of lays out how we see it. The first says, we are one with humanity and all of life. Business and all institutions of the human community are integral parts of a single reality, interrelated, interconnected, and interdependent. And then two is, in line with this reality, the purpose of business is to increase economic prosperity, and here we're addressing things like profits, while contributing to a healthy environment and improving human well-being. Now, the beautiful thing about this is I haven't found many people that have any argument with this at all. There have been some questions around financial transparency, but I think where we really kind of roll up our sleeves and get down to it, talk that out, we'll be fine there. And those questions only come from a few. But in terms of creating this new vision or a standard for business in the 21st century, most people I talk to from many different traditions, many different points of view, say, yes, this makes sense. Maybe this is a new vision, for business. Maybe this is how we can inspire business leaders for this future that we're creating for tomorrow. So we're real excited about it. Real excited to have Lance on the faculty with us. As you can see during this program, there's so much wisdom here that you share, and you've codified it to make it easy for people to really step into this, Lance. We really appreciate you and all of your wisdom. Can you share, how can people follow you? What websites can they go to follow your work here before I go to some coming programs?
Secretan.com, Secretan.com. I'm on Facebook, #Secretan on Twitter. So just Google Secretan, and you'll find a couple of million places where I lurk.
Absolutely. Gosh, and here we've got just a whole bunch of questions that poured in right at the end. Oh, my gosh. Let me just see if we can squeeze one real quick, because I don't. There were three that just came in. Let's see. Let's just take this one this is from Mona in Stockholm. What organizations has Lance encountered or worked with that best exhibit conscious leadership?
I think many of the big healthcare systems that I work with are leading the way. Providence Health, Centura, Catholic Health Initiative, Kaiser Permanente in California. So those are clients of mine that have done a fantastic job. I think that Humana, I mentioned earlier, another organization that's doing a great job too. I think Starbucks is a company that has tried really hard, sometimes gets bumped for doing things. But, you know, it's the same with another company, Whole Foods. I'll be interviewing John Mackey, who's the chairman of Whole Foods, later this year at a conference. He has run into difficulties in New York and California where people have been fiddling about with prices and weights and things, and he's been fined. His company's been fined. And this, I think, is very much about the reality of all of this. This is not hearts and flowers. It's not going to be perfect, as you said, Steve. It doesn't need to be perfect. John Mackey is pioneering what it takes to run a conscious business in the food supermarket sector of the economy, and he gets let down every now and again with old story leaders who don't follow the script. That's going to happen. And so we have to be tolerant of that as we make our way towards success. But those are a few of the companies that I think are worth mentioning, and there's a lot more.
Yeah, awesome. I'm going to just bring in one other one. Let's see. I probably shouldn't do this because we're going to go over here. So thank you, though, to listeners for bringing in your comments and questions. Lance, I want to thank you so much for being here. It is always such a pleasure, and all of us in Humanities team have been looking forward to this program with you. It's always a wisdom-filled hour, and certainly that was true today. And again, it was just really stunning to start with this book that you wrote. It's about your personal life with your wife, Tricia, who has passed. So thank you so much for just sharing not only wisdom, but sharing so personally with us. I'm going to come back and thank you some more, but that'll get us started. I mentioned here the Humanities team, the Club of Budapest, which is based out of Europe, the Goy Peace Foundation, which is based out of Japan, and the Fowler Center for Business out of Case Western Reserve University recently created this Conscious Business Declaration that defines a whole new standard for business in the 21st century. I read this second principle. It shares we must move beyond profit as an exclusive focus to profit that comes from nurturing humanity and life on the planet. And if you go to consciousbusinessdeclaration.org, that's consciousbusinessdeclaration.org, you can read it. We encourage you to sign it if it feels like something that's true for you, and also to become an ambassador for it, to share it in your community, in your schools, in professional associations, if you can be invited in to talk. Also, we have the following coming programs I want to tell you about. On Thursday, June 9th, next week at 8:30 Pacific time, we'll be interviewing Dr. Deborah Rosman. She's the co-founder, president, and CEO of HeartMath, and she's always such an amazing speaker. HeartMath is doing incredible things, so I invite you to join us for that call. Again, that's Thursday, June 19th at 8:30 Pacific time. Then on Wednesday, June 22nd, I'll be interviewing Jean Houston, and she's always also a very exciting guest. That call is going to be in the afternoon. Usually they're on Thursdays in the morning. That week it's in the afternoon at 1 Pacific time on Wednesday, June 22nd. If you go to livinginone.com, you can see all of our speakers, all of our coming programs. All of the programs are free, and if you miss a live program, we do send out a link for free listening for 48 hours as well. Most of the programs that we offer are free in Humanities team. We still are almost all volunteer. So if you resonate with our work, where we're awakening people to oneness and this creating social activism that's based on oneness, we invite you to financially contribute to our work. It helps to sustain us and extend our reach so we can touch more people all over the world. You can go to humanitiesteam.org to learn more about us and to donate or financially contribute to our work. Also, our program is focused on living in oneness, so I want to invite you to be part of Humanities Team's Community Circle. It's only $10 a month. It's for those who wish to be part of an intentional community committed to living and embodying oneness, those who want to collaborate and connect with leaders engaged in spiritual activism, a community that gives and receives support, a program that gives you access to all of our audio links to the Living in Oneness Summit, Global Oneness Day, and more. There are over 350 programs you can listen to. Also, there's a private Facebook community, and there's a weekly meeting that is Friday afternoons and Saturday mornings for Community Circle members, where we're coming together to share our own journeys in oneness, and many people are finding that really inviting to have a virtual community, kind of an intentional community that you can meet with to talk to people about oneness in their lives and in your own life. So you can, again, check that out at humanitiesteam.org. So, Lance Secretan, thank you. Thanks again for being here. Such a pleasure to have you with us. We've really appreciated it. I also want to thank my colleagues, Nanette Kennedy, Dee Meyer, Penny Heipel, and Monica Augustine. They are the people who are running this call and bringing in your questions and things in the background. And then last and definitely not least, I want to thank each of you, our listeners, who are making it a priority to create this shift in the world that's already begun and to be here for as we talk about important work as we're creating a more conscious world. So thank you so much to each of you. In closing, I want to invite everyone on the call to really live as one with the divine in each other. This is ultimate reality, and this is one of the best ways to spread the invitation of oneness. And it's how we'll create the world we've all dreamed about and envisioned. As we know, we already are all one, so let's embody it. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next Thursday, June 9th at 8:30 a.m. Pacific Time, when we're back on the air with Dr. Deborah Rosman with HeartMath. Okay, thanks again, everybody, and we'll talk soon. Have a great day.